I'm Stephanie from the Youth Services Department. On behalf of the Highland Park Public Library, we'd like to welcome you to Library in Your Living Room. Today we're pleased to present That's E-tertainment, Trickster Tales Edition. Today's tale, Coyote and the Laughing Butterflies, is based on a book by Harriet Peck Taylor, who is telling the story of a Tewa legend. In ancient times, when all the animals could talk, there lived a coyote. Coyote and his wife lived on a grassy mesa surrounded by small hills. A day's journey from their home was a big lake. Now the water in this lake was so salty that salt crystals collected along the shoreline. Animals came from all over to dig the salt to use for cooking. One morning, Coyote was lazing on the sunshine when his wife came to him and said, "Coyote, I need you to go to the big salty lake for me. I need some salt." Coyote got up, got a sack, and set out for the big salty lake. He followed the trail along the ridge, around the hills, and through the sagebrush until he got to the valley of the great salty lake. "Whew," said Coyote. "What a great coyote I am! Walking all this way in the hot sun, I deserve a break." So Coyote curled up in the shade of a cactus and went to sleep. Now in this flower-filled meadow lived many beautiful butterflies, and one of them flew over Coyote and said, "Look at lazy Coyote, sleeping when he's supposed to be gathering salt. Let's play a trick on him." So all the butterflies flew down, and they each took hold of a hair in Coyote's fur. That way they could lift him up into the sky. Coyote snored loudly. Heard the butterflies as they carried him over mountains and meadows. Coyote never woke up, not even when they finally reached his home and dropped him still sleeping to the ground. The butterflies were laughing and giggling so much at the trick they'd played on Coyote that they couldn't even fly in a straight line. They fluttered up and down in crazy patterns as they flew back to their meadow. When Coyote woke up and found he was back home, he was really puzzled. He scratched his head and tried to figure out what had happened. And when his wife saw Coyote yawning by the empty salt sack, she scolded, "You lazy Coyote, where's my salt?" Coyote didn't know where the salt was, but he promised he would get some tomorrow. The next morning, Coyote woke up when the sun was a great orange ball at the very edge of the earth. He ran faster than a tumbleweed as it tumbles across the desert. Coyote rounded the bend of a canyon, and he saw a lizard lounging lazily on a rock. "Coyote, my friend," said Lizard, "where are you going? And so fast, come rest on my rock with me for a while." "Not today, Lizard," said Coyote. "I've got to get to the great salty lake." Coyote kept running. By the time he got to the shores of the great salty lake, Coyote was so exhausted he could hardly hold his salt sack. "Whew," said Coyote, panting. "Oh, I've got plenty of time. I'm just going to take a little rest." And Coyote flopped down on the sand and went right to sleep. When the butterflies heard Coyote's snoring, they decided to play their trick again. One by one, they fluttered down to Coyote's fur and lifted him up towards the white, puffy clouds. Whoosh went the wind as it whistled through Coyote's fur. Coyote never woke up, not even once, not even when they dropped him back on the ground on his mesa. The butterflies were laughing hysterically, and they flew crazy zigzags across the sky back to their meadow. When Coyote's wife saw Coyote sleeping next to the empty salt sack, she was really irritated. She sat down next to Coyote with her empty salt bowl and let out a huge sigh. "Huh," she said. "Oh!" Coyote woke up. "My wife," he said, rubbing his eyes with his big furry paws. I went, I'm all sore. Look, I'm dirty. I ran so hard." "Then where's the salt, Coyote?" said his wife. "I need the salt by tomorrow." I'll get it. I'll get it. Don't worry, said Coyote. I promise you, you will have salt tomorrow. Coyote got up extra early the next morning, and he decided not even to follow the trail. He was going to take a shortcut. And so Coyote set off running and running. He ran around the hills. He splashed across streams. He pushed through canyons and willows and sagebrush. And when he came to a big river, his friend Beaver helped him across. Finally, Coyote got to the shores of the great salty lake. He was even more tired than he'd been the last time, but he didn't give up. He dug the salt and he stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed till his sack was brimming with salt, and he tied it off to make a big, huge sack bundle. What a thoughtful coyote I am, said Coyote. No one has ever collected this much salt, and it's all for my wife, but this bag is really heavy, and I am so tired. I have got to take a little nap or I'll never get home again. So Coyote put down the salt sack, thought it might make a nice pillow, and put his head down on it and went fast asleep. This time the butterflies took pity on Coyote. Oh, sure, they lifted him up off the ground again, but some of them also carried his salt sack. And they flew off in the sunset, across beautiful golden streams and shining mesas, until they got back to Coyote's home. And Coyote was so exhausted he didn't wake up even when they dropped him back down on the mesa. The butterflies laughed and laughed and laughed as they fluttered into the sunset back to their meadow. When Coyote woke up, he said, "No!" And then he saw the sack of salt. "Ah," he said, and he picked up the sack of salt. He said, "My wife, look what a marvelous coyote I am. I walked for so long carrying this huge sack of salt back to you." "Thank you," said his wife, and she began to cook. She cooked a feast. She cooked everybody's favorite food, and all their friends came. Bobcat and Roadrunner and Gazelle and even the snakes. And Beaver, of course, and Lizard, and all the beautiful butterflies. And they feasted, and they sang, and they laughed, and they danced in the light of the moon. And ever since then, Coyote likes to tell the story about how he carried the most enormous salt sack in the world, miles and miles back for his wife, who mentions that it took him 3 days to bring her any salt. Only the butterflies know what really happened, and they've never told anybody, but they still remember it to this day. And if you look out in your yard or in a park, you'll see them fluttering up and down and to and fro, laughing and laughing and laughing in the afternoon sun. The end. I hope you enjoyed joining us for Library in Your Living Room. Please check hplibrary.org for more virtual programs where we bring library programs to you. And remember, when you're home, need a story or two, that's okay, 'cause I have one for you a click away. It's so easy, and how? That's E-tertainment. So remember now, don't have a cow, use E-tertainment. Goodbye. Thank you for joining me for this series of Trickster Tales.